Hey, this is Tarence Lauchié, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this podcast, The Growth Exchange. This podcast was designed to curate conversation, dialogue, and monologue around all things growth. I believe that everything living has the potential to grow into its fullest and most maximal potential. So let's grow. Hey, welcome back to another edition of The Growth Exchange. I'm Dr. Terrence Lauchié, and I'm privileged, blessed, and honored to have a guest who's a good friend. We go a long way back, back to childhood, literally. And only recently did we realize that we were neighbors as preteens. But I'm excited today. I've got somebody who's got the same name that I have, but in his own right, he's got some expertise, world travel experience, as well as professional acumen that I pale in comparison. So, Dr. Brother Terrence King, welcome, man.
Oh, God bless you. My brother's always a pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely, man. We have so much in common. It could easily be taken for granted that that we're not the same person. Sometimes when we do consulting work on parallels, people are confused at which Terrence they're actually getting. So just for the listening audience, this particular episode is two Terrences but one King, right? All right.
And one master, one Dr. Terrence.
No, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate specifically the fact that you're willing to get with me to talk about growth. This episode, or for that matter, this whole podcast, is designed to curate conversation around growth, personal growth, spiritual growth, financial growth, academic growth, ministry growth, just growth, all things growth. So I want to open up the conversation and just feel free to, just have this dialogue like we were just doing off the air. Lots of laughter, lots of fun, some encouragement, of course. Sure. And I have to address it at the top of the hour. We both understand our clerical responsibilities and our ecclesiastical duties, but at the same time, we're just brothers having a good conversation about growth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So take us in, man. What do you got off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head?
Yeah.
Well, wow, there's so much.
There's a lot of it on the top of your head, right?
Point. But first of all, I just want to thank you for creating such a podcast for such a very needed and timeless topic of growth. I think many of us don't really grasp what growth is all about. In fact, I think many of us see growth as, at least the experience of it, as something negative. We like the outcome of it.
Sure.
But we don't necessarily care for the process.
Exactly. Because growth requires change.
Exactly.
And change can be painful.
And it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Growth is inevitable, like change. They kind of come part and parcel to one another.
Yeah.
So it behooves us to have podcasts like this to help us better understand what growth is. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Podcasts are really the move these days, both visuals as well as the audio of podcasts. You can take it anywhere. I was in the gym listening to podcasts, trying to build up my own, personal growth and development. And you are an anomaly as it relates to growth. You've had some career experiences, some opportunities. You are the leader of an international corporation that serves both locally, domestically, as well as internationally. Tell me about your personal journey to growth. Growing up from the city of Detroit, through your college experiences till now, all the people from Detroit are just like, yeah, I know it.
East side.
East side. There's the west side and then the best side is what I always say. Sure. And so the east side is the best side. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that journey, to get to where you are. You most recently retired from higher education.
Nice.
At the executive level, as well as instructor. You do consulting work, author of a book, which we'll get a chance to talk about probably at the second half. Yeah.
Yeah, not quite the book at this point, but yeah, we're working on it.
Listen, if it's on paper, it's a book. You know what I'm saying? No, you're there. You're there.
Yeah. I'm always so amazed at my life. And I know we're here to talk about growth overall, but I'm compelled just to share about the grace that's been extended to me to grow. I mean, you mentioned it earlier that we were kind of alley mates.
Yeah.
As we were going.
Well, most people don't know in Detroit, the streets were separated by alleys.
Yes.
Alleyways. Yeah.
Yep. So So, we didn't know it at the time, but we are both familiar with the environment of which we were born and grew up in. And, to be able to be graced to accomplish some of the things that God has given me to do, I'm just baffled by it. Because we're just nappy head kids on the streets of Detroit.
Exactly. Who happened to make it, right?
Who happened to make it.
I would
right?
venture to say, though, that God had a plan, which we were talking a little bit about off air, that God's steps, the steps that he has for us, are ordered.
Absolutely.
And without becoming, pulpit oriented, I think that those steps become clearer and clearer the older you get. Meaning, if you live, you live. Put it like that. If you live through, you live.
Yes. Older you get, absolutely, I completely agree. But you can still maintain taking the proper steps if you have the right counsel and you seek it. I'm the youngest of 6 children. And by way of birth order, I'm almost the firstborn again because there was 6.5 years between me and the brother that was above me.
Wow.
That's
starting a whole new family.
I always tell the folks that the first 5 were planned.
And then came you.
And then came me.
Yeah, that was a master plan.
It was a master, exactly right. You know where I'm heading with it.
Right.
But as a result of that, I hung out a lot more with my parents. And so I was around my elders a lot. So I got accustomed
So you got an old soul.
to hanging out with the elders.
You got an old soul.
You never know what that kid is learning. It was on the feet of at the feet of the elders.
My spot was under the dining room table.
It was.
Me and my cousin, we sat under the dining room table and listened to everything. Everything.
Yeah.
I can tell you some things that none of us should know.
Only what adult folks should know about, right?
Right.
Yeah, but those are moments, whether it's by counsel as you mature through aging, you get to ensure that those steps, because of the experiences that we have. Some of those experiences are comfortable, but I've found that in the moments that I've grown most, I had the most uncomfortable moments.
Hence, where you're heading with this manuscript that you're working on about being uncomfortable.
It's called that. The writings is about being uncomfortable. The title would be Uncomfortable.
Okay.
And the idea behind it is that being uncomfortable in life is inevitable. But if you look at the point and purpose, the majority of the time of being uncomfortable is for us to grow and to develop. So the idea behind the writing is learning how to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Since it's inevitable, why don't we learn how to do that well? And we talked earlier about there are many who are focused on the destiny, and that's not a bad thing. But sometimes the focus is so much on the destiny until we're not gaining all that we need to gain from the process, from the journey. Right? And in the journey comes the moments of being uncomfortable. And if we're distracted by the destiny, getting there, the final point, then we can miss although
what
painful,
you're learning along the way.
We can miss what we're learning along the way, right? Because things are being broken off of us, things are being added to us. We are able to perceive things because of pain. Because of the suffering.
The sensory, just the way that we're made as humans, our ability to sense and feel pain is an indication that something is changing or something is different.
Absolutely.
And the uncomfortableness that you're implying, I believe, is a deconstruction of most people's success. Most people's success is that, hey, I finally hit pay dirt and things are easy. Whereas I hear you deconstructing that, say, no, you know that you're growing when things are uncomfortable and when it's no longer an ease. Because if I was just at ease, what would be the point?
Sure. We talked earlier about working out.
Yeah, that's the journey.
And that's a journey.
Destiny, destination, all of it.
And we've all heard of the axiom, right? No pain.
No gain.
No gain. Right?
I should have a lot of gain based on all the pain. Right? Yeah. But no, I get that.
Yeah.
Mentally, it's the same way. Spiritually, financially, it requires work. I make the mistake oftentimes when I'm running around the track or walking speedily around the track.
Power walking.
Listening to E.T., you know, and,
Sure.
and ET will motivate you to get up and just go, you know. I mean,
I believe you're referring to Eric Turner.
Eric
Right?
Thomas.
Eric Thomas, rather. Yeah, he
Yep,
can get you around the track.
Dr. Eric Thomas will get you around the track. But I was just listening to in his most recent book entitled "You Owe You You." He says that there are no more excuses. Really, okay, how long do you get to hold on to something bad happened to me as a child, or I had a tough time growing up? I think we can relate to the toughness of growing up. I mean, we walked the same gravel alleyways to get to the party store around the corner that we could have gotten shot at because we were in a neighborhood where it was replete with that type of activity, just negative activity. You've grown beyond that, but yet you still have a connectedness. I think you just came back from like a 30-day tour to Africa.
Absolutely.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. Well, before I go into that, just to follow up on your point of listening to that work of E.T., I think within the journey of growth, there are perceptions that we have about what we are experiencing. And many of those perceptions are not conducive to us having the right perception of the growth, right? And so what that means is sometimes, and most of the time, I think, when we are in a moment of growth, we think that something is happening to me, and it is. But often we will default to whatever is happening to us is something negative until we realize that things are not just happening to us, they're happening for us. And that changes our perception.
I like to even embellish on that. It says happening through us, for us.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, because it could happen to somebody else for me if I had my way.
Yeah, it's suffering for someone else.
Yeah, you do the work, I get the reward.
Yeah.
But it's happening through us, for someone else.
Absolutely. And that's part of the journey. That's part of the growth journey.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that we are ever growing for ourselves alone.
Yeah.
Bob Buford writes this book called Halftime. And without getting too deep into the book, Bob Buford is this millionaire. And he's amassed millions of dollars, and he had a great deal of success. He writes the book Halftime because he, after all of this success, making all of this money, he was incomplete. So he then writes the difference between being successful and being significant. And he learned then through the growing pains of this discontentment with just having a lot of money, that he needed to do more than for himself. He needed to be significant for others.
Yeah.
And at that point began to go through kind of a whole new career, a whole new perspective on life, where he was no longer self-serving, but selflessly serving.
And serving others.
Right. And that takes me to the kind of work that you mentioned earlier about the trip to Africa. This one, well, I've been going to Africa.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many tours have you taken to Africa?
This is the 11th.
11. Yeah. Well, when I say tour, I'm not talking about like tourism. I'm talking about tour of duty.
Yeah, tour of duty.
Yeah,
serving,
serving and planting. Really, an apostolic type work.
Yeah, it is.
In education, business development, entrepreneurship, and ministry planting.
Right. So the primary work that I do is to go and help to build and strengthen leaders at any level. These could be community leaders, government leaders, pastors, ministry leaders, whatever capacity, to come and help them and share with them leadership techniques, principles, opportunities of growth to help them do what they do better. Right. This is not just the West coming to the rest.
Right. That makes sense.
There's literally a growth exchange happening.
Oh, absolutely.
When that happens. I mean, you've been to several tours yourself, so you understand that process.
Listen, I'm still debating on whether or not I learn more from those people I serve than they learn from me.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. I get a lot more. I gain a lot more than I think that I'm giving.
Yep.
But therein is the sacrifice. I think I was mentioning earlier about this moment of dichotomy that I experience.
Yeah.
This particular trip included not only Uganda, where I worked with 4 different churches and a school, but it also included a trip to Kenya.
Okay.
And in Kenya, I was there to meet with some leaders who were leading a ministry in a place called Kibera. Kibera is the second largest slum in the world.
Wow.
Second only behind the slum that's in India.
Yeah.
And so I'm meeting with them, and I'm humbled because the first day I get there, they take me on this tour. Now, for those of the listeners who may not be familiar with Kibera in the slums, in Kibera there are about 2 million people who live there.
Wow.
And the whole idea behind a slum is that you have a lot of people, but you don't have the resources for the people that you have in the area.
That's
right?
what
They're deficient in deficient resources. But I was so humbled after getting this tour and seeing that the basic needs weren't fully being met. I mean, we're talking about water and restrooms and
the
trash and the sewage system, and all of these things were lacking, and they were there, but not to the degree that they needed to be in order to service the people who live there. So I'm there during the day. I'm pouring out because, this is what I'm called to do. Right? Yeah. But at nighttime, I'm going to this plush and opulent hotel called the Sarova Africana.
Sounds like money.
It is. I won't take the time to describe it, but just suffice it to say that this caused this dichotomy. How can I go and serve in this slum area to these wonderful people who are simply lacking resources, and then come back to this opulence, right? That just caused some tension. But that tension, I realized, became an opportunity of growth for me.
Right. You probably had one of those cross-sectional moments of where you come from, where you are, and where you're going.
Absolutely. And when you come from, that's that nappy head kid in the streets of Detroit, right? That the experience of that helped me to identify. I've not been in a slum. We were in the ghetto.
Yeah, and there is a difference. A lot of people don't know the difference between the ghetto and the slum. And there are many ghettos in the slum.
Yeah, absolutely. and poverty for us in the U.S. is much different than poverty in a place called Kibera, right? While it's very communal and tribal in that sense, that still doesn't make up for the government being able to provide some things here that there's no provision from the government that's there.
Exactly.
I mean, the government comes to pick up the trash once a month at Kibera.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do with the other 29 days?
Yeah.
But again, the moment, the opportunity of growth was more in the growth of humility than it was in any other area. I was humbled to be walking the streets of Kibera. I was humbled to come back to an opulent place where I had everything that I need. If I thought about something, I had it available to me, right? There was one particular night where they were having this Indian festival, interesting enough, right? The largest slum is in India, but they were having an Indian festival with two master chefs that were there. I couldn't believe this. They took the time to describe to me, because I came late, they took the time to describe to me at this buffet what they had prepared. And then the chef of the hotel actually fixed my plate. I was humbled by that. So you can see where the growth of being humble occurred while I'm at one place where there's lack.
Yeah.
And then I'm in another place.
Well, just the stark difference, the stark dichotomy makes you do a self-reflection. And ministry and business and industry all intersect at some point, and it really has to do with who you are as a person. Well, you know what I want to do? I want to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, I want to get deeper into that experience of growth for you. What made it a growth experience? Sure. Just beyond the context of it being a dichotomy of a plush, 5-star hotel and then the slum. What made it a growth experience for you? Let's pause for a moment. I want to do a break for station identification, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more to Terrence King. Just great guy. I don't want to start calling all the accolades, but you're listening to the Growth Exchange with Dr. Tarence Lauchié, and my guest is Terrence King. We'll be right back. If you're a business or a nonprofit looking to tell your story through powerful video, you've got to check out 630 Visions. They specialize in creating high-quality cinematic content that not only looks amazing, but actually helps you grow your brand and connect with your audience. I've seen their work. It's purposeful, professional, and built around your vision. Visit 630visions.com, that's 630visions.com, to learn more and to see how they can help bring your story to life. Hey, welcome back. We're in the conversation about Kibera. Actually, the conversation, that would be a good chapter in the book, the streets of Kibera. A lot of people don't know it, but when we have experiences outside of our current social norm, it's a great opportunity for growth. You were just about to talk about the experience of dichotomy in the plush hotel that you were staying in while there in Africa and the slum that you had an opportunity and a privilege of being able to minister in. Talk a little bit about that and how you grew as a result of it.
Yeah, so thanks again. So that dichotomy, that tension that was created between wanting to serve or being there to serve within the slums of Kibera, and these wonderful leaders that were there who just had meager means. I mean, quite literally, it was abject poverty.
Wow.
And then coming back to a place of opulence and plenty. I didn't want for anything. I mean, even the technology in this hotel was not like what I've ever seen here in the States. Normally we get on elevators and we push a button when we get on the elevators. You don't do that there. You just wave a card in front of this thing outside of the elevator, and when you get on, it takes you
already
to
selected your floor.
It does.
Thank you for your arrival, Mr. King.
Yes, it was very much like that. And so what it helped me to understand was a couple of things in terms of growth. It helped me to look at my background as growth. Again, being raised on the streets of Detroit, growing from there, having an opportunity to get some education, baccalaureate, master's degree. From there, working in technology, and from technology to leadership.
In higher education?
In higher education. And then having the opportunity to serve as an administrator in higher education, then in the C-suite in higher education. It helped me to remember something that a faculty member on my team, and as I was an associate dean at Lansing Community College, said to me. She said, "You have multiple discourse." That's kind of an educated way of saying you know how to talk to a lot of people, regardless of what level.
To all people to win some. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it helped me to understand, in some ways, not recognizing it in the moment, but how my steps, as you said earlier, were ordered so that I would grow in ways that prepared me to be able to serve in Kibera.
Yeah.
Right. It was taking me back to understand the journey and then to appreciate that.
Yeah.
That in itself was a moment of growth.
Well, I think about how we've had some similar journeys as it relates to coming from Detroit, abstract poverty, making it through the Detroit public school system, which is a feat in and of itself, going on to college, university, master's level, higher education, working in an educational environment, but then also answering the call to ministry, marrying dynamic wives who God obviously. Oh yeah, I mean, we could go on and on and on about how God blessed us to have women of God who understood the assignment and they have their own lives
and endured us.
Different but similar in that you went the administrator route. I've worked in the C-suite at the same school, Lansing Community College, but in a different capacity. Where I think we have most in common is at the consulting work, the level of work that we do with the Business Community Institute as consultants to go into companies and to train and to pour into. Tell me about how that renders growth for you. I know for me, I learned even in those environments as well. Yeah,
a couple of ways that it does, and you're familiar with this. Growth in the moment of serving, right? We learn, we have a lot that we can share. We have well over 200 titles and topics that we can share with leaders, and we're happy to do that and happy to serve. But when we're in those environments and we're training, we actually gain and grow from the experience of those that are in the room.
Sure, because we don't know how to do their jobs. We just get paid to tell them how to do it better.
Exactly. But it's also revealing in ways that what is being discussed in the moment and in that room is revelatory to some things that we have already learned.
Exactly.
Right? It's adding to that. So that's one way. The other.
It could be, I don't want to interrupt, but I just thought about something. It could be the experience of a Kibera that equips you for the corporate training room of a company just down the street or around the corner.
Sure. There are some sensitivities, right? There are some areas that we wouldn't normally think of because we wouldn't have been in an environment like Kibera or South Africa where you've been or other places. Those are places where we just kind of gain more knowledge and we grow in our knowledge and ability, even to relate in ways that others may not have ever had that kind of experience, right? But we can help them understand through a very humble posture of how growth and humility and being vulnerable can help us to grow in ways.
You're setting me up man, for the next thing I was going to ask you to elaborate a little bit on those elements that you just mentioned, because it sounds like to me that those are byproducts of the experience. Are they stepping stones or byproducts of the experience of growth?
I think,
without being too, over the top philosophical, you mentioned humility. You mentioned, specific things that spell growth.
Yeah. So we all know this other axiom, right? Pride comes before a fall. Well, I think the opposite is true as well. Humility comes before promotion or exaltation, right? When we think about that, to be in a humble posture is something that is very vulnerable. We probably both heard, and many of the listeners have heard of Dr. Brene Brown's work on being vulnerable. And it is really, being vulnerable is a very painful and tough thing to do, particularly within the state of
uncertainty,
circumstances and risk. Uncertainty. It is a huge risk to do that, right? Because to be vulnerable is to really expose yourself. You're, in a sense, becoming emotionally naked.
Yeah.
You're becoming unclothed in many areas. And no one wants to be naked before someone emotionally or unclothed mentally in ways that they get rejected.
Yeah.
You want some kind of affirmation, right? Because you expose yourself to that. Or maybe even
something to cover, shield, or protect yourself with, in thinking that you're just as good as the other person, or you're just as you're fit for the environment. What you're talking about in growth strips all of that away, and you have to operate based on a whole nother set of skills.
Absolutely. Not only thinking that you're not going to be in the room, but thinking, or that that you're not prepared, that you shouldn't be in the room. But it takes humility to say, no, I should be in the room.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've always been reminded that it was God who got me here, so God's going to get me through it. And he didn't bring me this far just to bring me this far. Yeah. I've always felt as if those negative life experiences or those most challenging life experiences were the big nuggets of truth that help prove us. Think about defining moments. They're usually when you don't have enough, usually when you're not equipped or prepared, usually when some people would call it luck or just, coincident. I call it God orchestration. He literally orchestrates those undefined moments to become defining moments. When you look at your trips to Africa, your work here in the United States, and that's, from across the country to around the state, what stands out most to you as being your most memorable growth moments?
That's a good question. I think I would focus more on the process than one of the most memorable growth moments. And what I mean by that is the most intense times of being uncomfortable and the most intense times of the pain. The most intense time.
It sounds sick to me. It just sounds sick. I get it.
It does. I mean, again, we want to be sensitive to not preaching here. But this scripture in James, says, rejoice when you go through various trials and tribulations. What?
Talk about it. James who? What book is this from? No, I get it. It's hard not to be the preacher that you are. And, I get it. I can appreciate your ability to transcend moments.
But rather than preach, let's present the principle here, right?
Yeah.
In other words, there will be pain in life.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. There will be uncomfortable moments. You can't get around that. So to learn how to interpret the moment in ways that you can see the pain that's going to be of gain to you. I'll give you a quick story about my mother, and I always tell this. My mother, when she grew up, her father died when she was 8, and her mother died when she was 12. So she had to end up going to live with her oldest sibling. And he did well by her, of course, but she wasn't his child. And so she grew up essentially without a mother and a father and the kind of love and nurture that you would receive in that environment. And for her, it was painful. Earlier we talked about the sacrifices that we often make, that things are happening not just to us, but for us, but you mentioned through us. This is a classic things happening through us.
Okay.
Caused her a great deal of pain. But when she had her own children, she was determined that none of us would go through or have the experience of that kind of pain in our lives. So she loved us lavishly. We grew up without a lot of money, but it didn't matter. We had this kind of love for my mother. So I always say that my mother's pain was her children's gain.
Wow. That's phenomenal. When you think about the theme or the thesis of the work that you're doing right now entitled Being Uncomfortable, that's the quintessential example. That she was uncomfortable in her life, but it caused you all to have a level of comfort that also made you pliable in other uncomfortable situations.
Absolutely.
It's all fitting together now. I get it.
We grew and we soared as a result of that kind of love, but it caused her a lot of pain in order for us to have this kind of gain.
Yeah. I think about how what we're doing right now, even this conversation, this dialogue, somebody's listening, driving, maybe at the gym, maybe at home, preparing a meal or getting ready for their day. It can inspire them to overcome challenges. It can also equip and prepare them for the unknown. Walk us through kind of some steps, and we only got a couple minutes left really in this
Oh,
episode, and I'll definitely have you back. In fact, I want to have you and a couple of other people on a panel together.
I'd be honored.
You do this well, but your voice is, you got that radio voice anyway. Man, so.
You're too kind.
Walk us through the journey of challenge and pain to success, and then the next step. Because I consider success something other than what most people consider success. It's not just money. It's not fame. It's not, accolades. It really has to do with fulfillment of purpose. It is your maximal potential being actualized. So walk us through that journey, of what somebody who's listening may need to hear in order to put these principles into use.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it really begins with the posture of one's mind, which doesn't readily come. And what I mean by that is that posture of humility. And also, along with humility, being willing to take the risk.
Okay.
Right? We talk about risk and faith. Well, having faith is a risk, right?
Yeah.
Being willing to do that. And in some way, presuming that the experiences that I'm walking through towards what I identify as success, I can no longer say success without saying significance, because you can seek success amidst significance, but if you seek significance, success is inherent.
Yeah.
Right. So walking that out, believing and knowing that the journey is going to lead you towards something that is going to be successful and significant. particularly, as you said so eloquently earlier, that if we're experiencing some pain, some discomfort, I call it being uncomfortable, then know that that is a sign in and of
You're
itself
moving in the right direction.
that you're moving in the right direction. If all is going well, and I don't mean to suggest that you always have to have this tension of something negative going on in your life to challenge us, but that is the success is often accompanied, or I should say preceded.
Yeah. Well, that's the indication
by
of growth. Think about, physical weights. Without the resistance of gravity and weight, you're not going to build or gain any muscle or anything. So I heard 3 steps. I heard the posture of humility. And then the next step, of course, was...
Yeah, just having the mindset of and believing that what you're experiencing is going to end up something that's going to be positive or successful.
Successful through significance.
Through significance.
Okay.
We're seeking significance more than you seek success.
Got it.
Because success is kind of self-oriented.
Yeah.
And significance
relative.
is others-oriented.
Wow. That's pretty deep, too. Because if success is what people are striving toward, they're going to be consumed with self. But if significance is what people are striving toward, they're going to impress success upon so many other people.
Absolutely.
Just by virtue of their humility. And yeah, it's all fitting together. Now, you're a deep philosopher.
Well, I've got good friends that I have these conversations with.
You do know, out of all the episodes, this is probably one of the deepest ones of them all.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is like 2 old wise men talking, you know.
The sages.
2 old men just sitting on the porch talking, you know. I appreciate you, and I want you to have the last couple of minutes to close out something that you'd like for people to hear, you know, from you. Of course, we're going to put in the show notes how people can contact you for speaking engagements, for consultation, consulting work.
It's very generous of you.
Highly skilled in technology. People need to know that about both software and some hardware stuff. You know that quite well.
Well, I kind of defer a lot of that.
You defer it now?
These days,
That makes you a wise consultant. You know, a wise consultant doesn't have to know how to do it. They just know how to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I can appreciate that. But yeah, you close us out with maybe just some words of wisdom, some insights, and that'll take us in.
Yeah, I'm trying to distill. There's so much going on in my mind, and you have provoked.
That's the goal, man. It's the growth
here.
exchange.
It's the growth
You should leave
exchange.
here and just exchange more growth, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I would say this. Expect growth, right? And expect that in ways that may not be anticipated. Right, because when you earlier talked about the ordering of the steps, we're not given 10 steps to follow. We're just given the step that's in front of us.
One at a time.
Right? And so, but expect that step, if it's been ordered and not just taken, there's a difference. An ordered step is one that has been perceived, and of course, as men of God, we believe that God orders those steps. Or someone that is in our lives that can see where we're heading and perhaps have been where we're heading and can tell us, take that step, not that one. If you take that step, there's a pothole here. You might get tripped up. There's a landmine over there. But you take this next step and believe that step is going to take you towards the direction of significance and success. And it's so important to have the right mindset when on a journey towards success. And the right mindset being that you're being built and equipped for this. Sometimes we think we have to have it all together. We do need to be prepared, but you don't have to necessarily have it all together. That's what the growth journey is all about, is growing as we're going. I always say to folks, don't just go through stuff. Grow through stuff.
I love it.
And don't stop there. Don't just grow through it. Glow through it.
Wow. So you go from growing to glowing.
To glowing.
Listen, that's a great spot to just say, keep growing. The conversation that we just had, I think, is one of many that will bless your life. Terrence King is CEO and founder of Kingdom Ministries, and he's done global work and is doing global work in building leaders and helping people to become their very best selves using what they have. So I want to say thanks again for being here. Appreciate the work that you're putting into advancing the kingdom, but thanks for challenging us to keep growing.
Yeah, and thank you, my friend. It's always a joy to be with you.
God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Growth Exchange. I'm Dr. Tarence Lauchié. It's been a pleasure to have these conversations and dialogues with our guests. If you notice, one thing we all share in common, and that is the ability, the desire, and the potential to grow and maximize our fullest potential. So keep tuning in. Share this with somebody, like it, maybe even invite somebody. And if you'd like to be a guest, contact us with the information that's here and available for you. Let's grow.